This episode is brought to you by Munton's Malts, a company that is passionate about providing premium malts to brewers worldwide. For over a century, Munton's has been a leading supplier of brewing and distilling malts, offering the finest British malted barley on the market. You can experience the difference Munton's offers by joining a recipe receiving tier of our Trub Club, because every kit that ships out now includes premium Munton's malt. You know, we've known the Munton's crew for a long time, and I can tell you, friend, you're going to love brewing with their grains. Ask your local supply shop to carry Munton's malts, or homebrewers can join our Trub Club at homebrewhappyhour.com/club, be a part of the community, and come brew with us. Thank you, Munton's, for supporting our efforts and homebrewers worldwide. Today's show is brought to you by Hopsdirect.com. Grown in the esteemed Yakima Valley on the Pewterball family farm, Hopsdirect.com offers the widest variety of hops available online at incredibly competitive pricing. It's simple. They grow hops, they sell hops, and they ship hops straight from their family-owned farm to your doorstep. Producing the highest quality hops is Hopsdirect.com's passion, and they're proud to be an independent grower in the craft beer industry. Go to Hopsdirect.com right now and get what you need to make your brew day better. That's Hopsdirect.com.
Entertaining shows with content that spreads information and sparks discourse throughout the community. This is the Pearl Media Network.
A Hill Country original, talking real ale with Brad Farbstein. This is Homebrew Happy Hour, episode 464. Welcome back to the Homebrew Happy Hour. This is the show where we supply the answers to your homebrewing questions and discuss all things related to craft beer. And if you, my friends, have a question you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, you could go to homebrewhappyhour.com. You can email joshua@homebrewhappyhour.com. Even better, call it in. Leave a voicemail to 325-305-6107. I am your host, Joshua Stubing. Today, I am recording live from the Real Ale Brewing Company's campus in beautiful Blanco, Texas, and I am joined by the president of Real Ale, Mr. Brad Farbstein. Brad, my friend, thank you for doing the show.
Good to see you.
I wrote something about you.
Okay.
Brad's story is the ultimate homebrewer's dream. He went from homebrewing to buying Real Ale in the late 90s and turned it into a Texas powerhouse. We're going to discuss the history of the brand, how the industry has changed over the last 29 years, and how Real Ale continues to be a legend in the Texas independent craft scene. That was probably ChatGPT. I'm not that eloquent. I'm not that eloquent. And I'm going to take this off too. Nothing's cooler than a middle-aged man in a backwards cap. Anyways, Brad, I appreciate your time, my friend, for doing the show. I was telling you before we recorded, my pop and I, and usually my kids, if I can drag them out with my wife, make it to the Oktoberfest. Otherwise, I don't make it out here enough. I'm impressed with the midweek crowd.
Yep.
A midweek crowd in your tap room. It was hopping in there. I don't know if that's because I was here. You know,
I think they heard your coming.
They heard I was.
Yeah.
One guy, the guitar guy, did say, "Hey, are you a podcaster? I think Brad's waiting for you." And I thought he recognized me. He did not recognize me. He just saw all my gear. It was like, that's who Brad was talking about.
I think people are probably breaking that dry January ready to get out. The beautiful weather doesn't hurt.
Today's a beautiful day. The drive from San Marcos to here, I do it frequently. The company I worked for is in like the Brownwood area, and I refuse to go through Austin.
Oh yeah, take the Devil's Backbone up, and
I go through like all the way to Lampasas and then 183 till I get up to them. But I was like, man, so I have motorcycles. They're not running. I was like, I wish they were working right now, because the ride today would have been beautiful.
It's gorgeous. Yeah.
How did you actually get a lot of bikers that make their stop out here on Hill Country riding?
We do get a number. There's a couple of rallies that run through town, and we're always real cautious, making sure everybody's being responsible, especially on a motorcycle.
I like that. Lidl team's in our ears.
That's right.
I like that. Covering your bases.
Yes,
HR
please.
and PR will appreciate you, Brad.
Well, and we want to make sure everybody goes home and gets home safely.
Yeah. I do want to say thank you first off for the beer. And before I let people know
what it is, go to patreon.com/homebrew happy hour, join the recipe receiving tier, because we're doing a Fireman's clone. We're calling it Hill Country Blonde, and we'll talk about the recipe. You don't have to give me like the exacts. I'm going to tell you what I come up with later, and you can just wink, wink if it's close enough.
Okay, easy enough.
But whatever you want to give me for details of making it better, you tell me, because we're purporting this to be a clone, but I think I've got it pretty close.
It's pretty straightforward. Yeah. So,
but with that being said, I confessed to Brad before we started recording, Hans Pils is my favorite real ale beer of all time. It's not I know it's a flagship beer, but I feel like Fireman's shaped a lot of millennials. I think I'm an elder millennial, but I'm a millennial. Our gateway for craft beer. It was like you guys and Shinerbach were like the gateway to what is good craft beer in Texas. And every sports bar had Fireman's on tap. If they had Hans Pils, maybe I'd be brewing a Hans Pils clone. But it's also easier for homebrewers to do ales than it is lagers.
I think so.
For these recipe kits.
Yeah, a little bit more straightforward. I mean, and lucky for us, Fireman's was a brand that really put us on the map. It's a pretty straightforward single infusion mash, so easy to get through the brew house, and pretty short tank time. 21 days for us. So
that's incredible.
Yeah,
that's a great turnaround.
Yeah.
Our whole premise we've been doing a recipe of the month club since October of 2019, and for 2026, our goal is a craft legend every month. Like we did Shiner last month, we're doing you guys this month. We're maybe doing some big California ones next month. They just haven't replied to my interview request yet. But even if they don't interview it, I'll do the hand puppet thing, like, hey, what's the history? And we'll do a fake interview. But either way, I immediately thought of you guys when I thought of what beer in this state really shaped the landscape for craft beer, because Fireman's has just always been a part of the craft beer scene as I've been legal age to drink. And that's when I started drinking, when I was of legal age.
Of course you did.
And so, but before we get to that and all that, I want to start with your history, because it's true, you didn't just buy a brewery and then start brewing. You were a home brewer before commercial brewing was ever in the picture.
I mean, thank goodness for Jimmy Carter, and legalizing homebrew for us. Hopefully one day we'll get to home distilling. But I was a University of Texas student, and I was 18 years old, and I started playing lacrosse for UT. And one of my lacrosse teammates was pre-med and a homebrew student. And he was a home brewer, and he offered one afternoon after practice for me to come over and help him with the batch. And I was super curious, and so spent the day with him home brewing. Totally caught the bug. Was underage and able to buy grain and hops and yeast, but not able to buy beer. And so it seemed like a good idea to invest some time into doing some home brewing. And, I homebrewed all through college. Started buying ingredients from Austin Homebrew from the guys over on North Loop, and that whole Darren and all the kids over there. And we hit it off and spent a lot of time making different recipes. As a home brewer, you spend 8 hours in the kitchen making the beer, and 3 weeks cellaring and packaging the beer. And then my friends would come over, and in 45 minutes we'd drink all the beer I made, over the last 3 weeks. 5-gallon batches. Yeah. I mean, I started with extract, and then did a partial mash with extract, and then moved over to all grain, and upgraded some of my equipment. And we went from 5 gallons to 10-gallon batches, and then we went to 15-gallon batches, and then the goal was to get up to about 50 or 60 gallons. We bought some old soup kettles at a restaurant supply auction, and we converted them over for brewing. I actually had some of the original mash tun, lauter tun screen from let's see, it was Lone Star. and we cut a section of that out and set them into those soup kettles. And I actually ended up meeting one of my lifelong friends and longtime employee of the brewery, Jerry Lyles. He had a welding shop in Austin called Waterloo Welding. And, I was a crazy homebrewing kid, and I had bought a bunch of triclover fittings, and I wanted to, cut into the tank and weld these triclover fittings in so I could get all my clamps and hoses and pumps and all to work off of something that was kind of standard in the industry. And, I'm probably showing my age, but we started in the Yellow Pages, which
what's that, Misty? No, I'm kidding.
Most people are with the Yellow Pages, in the phone book, and we actually started in welding companies at A. And you can see we got all the way to Waterloo before anybody actually was able to semi-interested in taking on the job. And Jerry Lyles, the owner, was super nice on the phone. He's like, yeah, bring some of your homebrew and bring the tanks over and we'll get them knocked out. And him and his guys were super nice, and they ended up cutting into those tanks and putting in all the fittings for us. So, homebrewing was super important to me. I just really loved the idea of taking these very traditional ingredients and combining them in very time-honored traditional methods, and ended up, with this social lubricant that people love to come over and hang out. And we, in college, I also started a small company called Kind Kegerators of Austin, and I would go and convert old refrigerators into kegerators.
No kidding.
And so I had a number of my different models at our house. At one point, I think we had 10 beers on tap at our house, and we actually ran I probably shouldn't say this, but we had like a co-op essentially, and
statute of limitations
probably over by now.
Way over.
But we would essentially have a clipboard, and every time you drank a beer, you marked down what you drank, and then when we floated the keg, we divided the amount of marks because everybody. It's the honor system.
I was going to say Scout's honor.
The Scout's honor. And actually, we worked it out to where, well, if you don't mark it down, you're not only screwing one person over, you're screwing the whole group over, because everybody's got to pay more for their beers. So we would divide the cost of the beer and pay for that beer and go use that money to go buy the next keg. So, we drank a lot of Shiner Bock as I was growing up and in college. The beer we probably had on most was Anchor Liberty Ale. That was kind of like our go-to.
You're able to get that in Austin.
In Austin in the 90s, yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, we actually at one point were Anchor's largest on-premise retailer in the state.
No kidding.
We bought more beer at my house than any other retailer bought in the state. From Anchor, and we actually ended up going over to the distributor at the time, which was Shiner of Austin, and talked to Bob Leggett and those guys, and we ended up getting tap handles from the breweries. They sent them over since we were buying so much beer. So
they thought you were a store.
Yeah, well, they didn't really know, but we didn't really tell them. So, but we drink a lot of Liberty Ale.
Steam.
Steam was on the list. It probably wasn't as frequent as Liberty Ale. We drank Red Seal was pretty popular. Some North Coast, obviously Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. So back in the 90s, there was like very few options coming into the state. So most of the better California breweries were definitely banging out some pretty killer beers.
In another life, could you have owned a craft beer bar and just been content with that?
I would have, I will say though, I never really had a clear plan, and had a lot of good opportunities come my way. So, I homebrewed all through college, graduated, I got a BA in economics, and I did like most good college graduates. I bartended and waited tables for 3 years and drove my parents
Yeah.
crazy. I had a great time. I was homebrewing the whole time and made better money, waiting tables and bartending than I probably made in the first 15 years at the brewery.
I
But
believe that, dude. I believe that.
worked with the team at Warrows in Austin
Okay.
and helped them move from their original location on Old Torf to the location they have on South Congress. And the Lippincott family were super supportive. And I worked at it Houston's up on Anderson and Burnett.
Yeah.
Made big bank working out there for sure. And talked to my parents about opening a brewery. And my parents were super supportive. And my dad's only recommendation was that if I wanted to open a brewery, that he recommended I go work for another brewery and learn on someone else's dime.
Yeah.
And I thought that was good advice.
Brilliant
And
advice.
so I started harassing Kevin Bartal and Brock Wagner over at St. Arnold to get me a job. And both of them had economics degrees, believe it or not. So I tried to go in on the economics front with Brock and Kevin, and ended up um, getting them to kind of hear me out. And at the time, they weren't distributing up in Austin. They were just selling beer in Houston, but they had plans to expand into Austin. And Brock said, like, hey, when we expand into Austin, I'll give you a call. And about 6 months later, they did. They were expanding into Austin. I met them at one of their launch parties, and I had a list of like 300 accounts in Austin. I had already broke them up into A and B priority because I was out drinking in all the bars. I knew exactly where people were drinking craft beer, and said, hey, you should hire me, and these are the places where we should go and go sell St. Arnold. And the following Monday, I got a call from Kevin, Brock's partner at the time, and he offered me a job. And I instantly took it. It was like, I think I was making like $16,000 a year, but I had all the beer I could drink in the 90s. Probably 94. I had all the beer I could possibly drink, and an expense account to go out and drink beer and eat food and
drink more beer.
And it was my opportunity to go work in the industry. And so I spent about a week at the brewery in Houston working with the whole team there. And then I started selling St. Arnold in Austin. And I established all of St. Arnold's original accounts in Austin, and built up the brand to where it was fairly successful. And then I ended up doing an event. It was actually the Lone Star Chili Cook-Off, and I was out at Lake Travis. And it was an event that Capital Beverage, the distributor, they were a distributor for Lone Star, but also for St. Arnold. So they brought St. Arnold out, and I got to go out to that festival and promote St. Arnold. And there's some weird Texas laws, but one of the laws says that for special events, they have to have 2 distributors out there. And it mainly keeps big distributors from capitalizing all the events and kind of buying them out, which is kind of a good thing. And so usually the organizers will go and pick the weakest distributor in the market and bring them in. And there was a new craft beer distribution company in Austin that had just opened called Microbility Beverage. And the 2 owners of that company came out, and they were selling some of the beers they were bringing in from Colorado. They had like Tommy Knocker. I don't know if anybody remembers Tommy Knocker.
I don't by name. No.
And Left Hand, Eric Warner's, Tabernash, and we had Diebel's Alt. You were just mentioning Alts. Yeah, we had Diebel's. We had Chimay in some counties, and we had Martin Wetton's Import. So we had Loose Fur and Satan and Struffe Hendrick. And
what a collection!
Some interesting beers. So
this is still early 90s.
Early 90s. So we obviously weren't selling those high-end beers out of the Lone Star Chili Cook-Off, but they had Real Ale as one of their suppliers. And so they brought Real Ale out to the Lone Star Chili Cook-Off. And these guys were super nice, but they had never hooked a jockey box up and had never really kind of done a special event
Yeah.
before. And so I ended up hanging out with them. This guy's name was Chemo and Chad. And we sat around and drank beer and had a blast. I got to drink real ale, which I was already a fan of.
Okay, you'd already had it. Yeah.
I was familiar with their Full Moon Pale Rye and their Brewhouse Brown, which were two of the original beers the brewery started with. And we ended up having a great time hanging out. And the following Monday, Chad called me up and said, "Hey, do you want to come work for us?" And I felt like I had spent a couple of years with St. Arnold. I had kind of achieved, I think, what my dad had recommended. And I felt like I was ready to see the other side of the business, which was the distribution side. Because
Right.
I thought if I ever did open a brewery, I think understanding the perspective from both the brewer side and the distributor side would be
Yeah.
important. Because sometimes there's some challenges where the brewer feels like the distributor's not doing enough, and the distributor feels like the brewer's not doing enough. So kind of understanding each other's perspective, I thought
For
would be
sure.
extremely
Yeah.
valuable. Not to mention, I think they doubled my pay. I think I made $32,000 a year. I was going to take a management role, and I got a company car.
Oh my gosh.
And so
You're living the dream. 24 years old probably and living the
not
dream.
even,
Yeah.
not even, probably 22, 23. So I ended up taking a job with them and left St. Arnold. And it was great. I learned some things the hard way. The first couple of days in the role, I learned that as a sales manager, I didn't have any people underneath me. So
Yeah.
I was both the salesperson and the sales manager all at the same time. That my company car was a 1978 Le Mans that someone had just stolen and broken the steering column, and I was given literally a flathead screwdriver as the key
That's
to start the car, and the hood was all smashed in, and my first day out in the market, and this is back in the '90s on the east side of Austin, which was a little sketchy at that time.
which part, like Cesar Chavez or like
Uh,
Riverside, Old
well,
Ford?
we were pretty far out on like Airport and Shady, like where that Dan's Hamburgers is, if
Yeah,
that
yeah,
makes sense. So
absolutely, yeah.
I ended up getting in the car and going out to my first account, and I didn't make it 15 minutes out of the driveway before I got pulled over by APD with a flathead screwdriver sticking out of the ignition in his car. The guy pulls a gun on me, puts me in cuffs, and throws me in the back of the car. And I'm like, "Hey, like, this is my company car.
Yeah,
I was given, this is my key." And he's like, "Yeah, right,
yeah,
buddy."
sure, pal.
Chad, who was one of the owners of Microbility was really just his side hustle. He
Yeah.
was actually had a full-time job, and he couldn't get out of work until like 5:30. So I sat in the back of a cop car for like 6.5 hours until
Oh my god.
Chad could come and bring him the title and assure the police officer that I had not stolen his vehicle.
Yeah, cell
So
phones weren't really a thing either, so you had to
yeah,
get
yeah, we were waiting for Chad to come and bail me out. So, but it was great. I got to establish all the original Real Ale accounts.
yeah, yeah,
Also, I loved the beer they were making. And then I got an opportunity to really bond with the Connor family who originally
yep.
started the brewery. Philip Connor and his son Charles and Philip's wife Diane. It was Philip's kind of retirement project. Charles was also doing it as a side hustle. He had a full-time job in high tech. And so they were mainly doing it in the evenings and the weekends and whenever they could pull it off. So during the week, I would sell their beer in the market. And then on the weekends, I'd come out to Blanco and help them brew and bottle and keg because I was really a lot more
So,
interested in making the
of
beer than I
course.
was in
Yeah, the business.
marketing and
Yeah.
selling it. And so, pretty much every weekend I would come out to Blanco and help them, with whatever they had going on. And it was probably February of '98. Philip called me when I was at the warehouse one afternoon and said, "Hey, we're having some financial challenges and I'm having some health issues. and we're going to sell the brewery. And he's like, you're so connected in the industry. He's like, I want you to see if you can help me sell it. And I just told him on the phone immediately, is like, well, I want to buy it. And he's like, well, you don't have any money. And I was like, well, I have a BA from UT in economics. I was like, we'll figure something out,
That's funny. His first reaction was, you're broke. Yeah. Sounds like my father talking to me.
You're driving around a 78 Le Mans with a beat up hood.
We know you. We're good.
We're good?
So sorry. Yeah.
Nice.
We are good. I'll get that out of the shot.
Let me start from the beginning. Then.
Hey, that never stopped recording, and that's technically picking up audio too, so I'm not going to edit anything out.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. I forgot where I shut you off. That's the worst part.
Let's see, where was I?
The Connors.
Oh, you don't have any money. Yeah.
And you're going to figure it out.
We're going to figure it out. So I had an inheritance when I was 13. My grandmother passed away and left me like $11,000, and I put it in a savings account. By the time I was like 18, it was worth like $11,032. And the 80s and 90s were great for that.
Yeah.
And I had a friend who was older, who was a certified financial planner. And he called me up one afternoon. He's like, hey, do you still have that money your grandmother left you? And I was like, yeah, it's just sitting in the savings account. And he's like, well, I really think you ought to invest in this company. And they're having an IPO, and you'll never get it on the IPO, but you should just buy it whenever you can. And I was like, well, what's the deal? And he's like, well, they're an Austin-based company. He says they're into natural foods and into bulk food. They have one location. It was on Lamar and 9th Street.
I know what you're talking about.
And he was talking about Whole Foods.
Yeah, I was going to say, that sounds like Whole Foods to me.
So I did buy some Whole Foods early in their launch. I bought $11,000 worth. And by the time I had the opportunity to buy the brewery, it had appreciated to about $65,000. So
no kidding.
It was pretty good return on investment. Not enough to buy a brewery.
No, I was going to say, was it not in the 90s even?
But good return on investment. And so what I suggested to Philip was that we take that money and we use it to secure a debt consolidation loan, because he had accumulated a good amount of debt to suppliers, his bottle supplier and his grain supplier and hop supplier. And, I suggested that we could go and get a debt consolidation loan. We'll use the debt consolidation loan to pay off the debt. And then he had offered to owner finance the rest. And within about 2 months, I left Microbility and took over running Real Ale. And that was probably April of 98. Yeah. So about 2 years after the brewery had started. Yeah. So and we worked, and we gave Phil about 30% of all the net profits every month, and got him paid off over about a 3.5 year period.
That's not bad.
So it wasn't very bad at all. We were really starting to grow. Selling craft beer in the 90s was like banging your head up against a concrete wall. So there was no concept of multi-tap bars, or there was. If a bar was a multi-tap bar in the 90s, they had 4 handles. They had Bud, Miller, Coors, and if they were crazy, they had China.
I was about to say,
there was no 40 tap bars, 60 tap bars.
Yeah.
I have a funny story of trying to, sell Real Ale to this notorious account in Austin, and most people probably know who it is, so I won't say the account name because they're still in business, still a customer. But the guy was so pissed, he jumped over the bar with a baseball bat and chased me out of the bar.
You're kidding me?
No, I'm not kidding you. It's a true story. So
you still know the guy?
Still know the guy. He's still a very lively individual.
Okay,
so
you're good with words.
But yeah, I mean, selling beer was tough back in the 90s. Nobody was drinking craft beer. Nobody knew what it was. Nobody knew why they should drink craft beer. And so, a lot of what we did was educate people about craft beer and, some of the benefits of drinking craft beer, especially unfiltered beer and the benefits of live yeast and flavor and, all the different styles that were out there that most people were not all too familiar with. And so, we were able to slowly grow the brand. Now, the brew house that we were working on that Philip had originally acquired was actually a craft brewery before. It was called Reinheitsgebot Brewery, and it was up in the Dallas Plano area, and it was actually the first craft brewery in Texas.
No kidding.
And they had acquired the equipment originally from Hershey, Pennsylvania. So it was a chocolate mixer and a chocolate cooker that they had converted over for brewing. I believe they opened in like 89 and closed in like 92, 93.
Were they only doing German styles, I'm assuming, with the name like that?
I think they were, and I think they were making pretty good beer, but again, just trying to sell craft beer back then was really, an uphill battle. And so it was a 15-barrel system. It was a mash tun, elevated mash tun, and combo mash lauter, and then combo kettle whirlpool.
Yeah.
So it was live fire, so it had a big gas burner underneath it.
Wow.
And it was, as about as down and dirty as it gets in making craft beer. Because back in the 90s, there was no equipment for craft brewers. There was no equipment suppliers that were making equipment for us. So you kind of had to make it out of what you had. So, most of our equipment came out of dairy farms in San Antonio. San Antonio used to be a huge dairy industry, and a lot of these dairy tanks were still sitting out in fields in San Antonio. We would just go drive around and knock on these farmers' doors and
offer them money.
Offer them money for their tanks. And
and they're stainless steel. I mean, they're sanitary.
Yeah. I mean, we would either like put stainless steel coils inside of them for cooling if they were just insulated, or some of them were jacketed. So, I mean, we were primarily in horizontal dairy tanks in this 15-barrel brew house. And, we did, man, it seems like the first year I took over, maybe we did 350 barrels, 400 barrels, which, on a 15-barrel system, 20 brews, it was pretty good, but not enough to pay the bills, really. And then we just slowly grew the brand year over year. So, I think in the first 2 years, by the time we got to like 2000, we were probably doing like 900 barrels, and then 1,500 barrels, and then 3,000 barrels. And by about 2002, we realized that we were going to max out at our facility. Our original facility was on the town square in Blanco.
Just down the road.
Basement. It was in the basement of Cranberry's Antiques. So 7-foot ceilings. No floor drains. Absolutely a nightmare to make beer in. We actually had to drain all the tanks into paint pans and then dump a paint pan into a 5-gallon bucket and dump a 5-gallon bucket into the sink. Shot back all the water up. But, we were making beer, and we were making pretty damn good beer. I've always said that, you can make great beer with shitty equipment. You can also make shitty beer with great equipment. I think it all comes down to, the skill set and understanding and, your basic understanding of chemistry and microbiology. And so, we make great beer. And so in like 2002, we started thinking about like, how are we going to, take it to the next level. And so in 2002, we purchased about 5 acres right outside the city limits. And the only reason we were able to afford the property is that it didn't have city water and city sewer. And then we worked with the city for a couple of years trying to find grants to help us get water and sewer services out to the facility. So we ended up qualifying for a grant called the Texas Capital Funds Grant. And it's out from the Texas Department of Agriculture, and it's designed to promote manufacturing businesses in rural areas, which we happen to qualify for. And it was a 100% grant. It was a tri-party agreement between the city, the state, and the individual business. And our side of the agreement was that we had to double our workforce, and we had to pay above a living wage, which we were already paying. We always paid pretty well. And so that was pretty easy for us because we were growing. So we ended up qualifying for about $650,000 worth of infrastructure, which is what it costs to put water and sewer lines about a mile and a half in the ground.
That's a lot to cover.
Yeah, it went from 14th Street all the way up to us. And then when you put water in, you're required to also put fire hydrants in. And believe it or not, a fire hydrant is very expensive, and you have to put them in like every 600 feet or something like that. So we probably bought 15 fire hydrants, and but we got all the water and sewer in the ground starting in 2005. And then we started on construction of the first building out here, which was a 7,500 square foot pre-engineered metal building. And we started looking for equipment to put in there. We ended up buying Harpoon's old brew house out of Boston.
No kidding.
So it was a 60-barrel 4-vessel system, which was a huge upgrade from our 15-barrel system. And we bought some used tanks. We finally were able to get into cylindrical conical tanks, uni tanks. And we started getting the uni tanks out here. And I think we brewed our first batch of beer out here in 2007.
Oh, wow.
So we were 11 years on the town square. And then, hard to believe, but we've been here at the new location for the last 19 years. So this year being our 30th anniversary, it's really hard to reflect on all these years and decades that have gone by. But yeah, I think our first production here was 2007. I think 2006 we did 5,500 barrels on a 15-barrel system.
So
yeah,
and you're head brewer as well at this time.
I'm
you're doing everything, right?
Yeah, I mean,
do you have days off when you're doing that capacity?
No.
How many brew days are you doing?
We're
doing
7 days a week. Yeah, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for almost 2.5 years straight.
How are you not bald like me, dude?
There's very little hair back here. I mean, we had a small team and a very dedicated team. We were probably at that time 10, and we all did everything. We brewed, we cellared, we packaged, whatever
you delivered.
We delivered. Yeah, we were still doing some delivery outside of the Austin, San Antonio region. And it was crazy. We slept on grain bags and woke up and brewed beer, and it was awesome.
That's a young man's thing, dude. That's a young man's thing.
It was, it was definitely long hours, but at the end of the day, you spend more time at work than you spend anywhere in your life. And you might as well enjoy what you're doing. And we were having a really good time. We were playing hard, we were working hard, but we were making beer and we were selling a lot of beer. So 5,500 barrels the last year, which was 2006 on that 15-barrel system. We did 11,000 barrels the first year on the 60-barrel system.
That's
so
fantastic.
100% growth. We went from like 11 to 15 to 18 to like 24 to 35 to 45 to 55. I think in 2016, we maxed out at like 61,000 barrels.
This is exponential growth.
Exponential, and all in Texas. We don't sell a drop of beer outside the state.
Right.
I mean, in 2015, we started to realize that we were pushing capacity on the 60-barrel system from Harpoon. It was 20 years old when we bought it, and we had used it for almost 10 years. It was towards the end of its lifespan, and so we decided to start on the new brew house project, which was the most complicated engineering project that we've ever taken on. So that was a 3-year project. We had all the equipment designed and engineered in Sion, Germany, and fabricated in Sion, so on the eastern border by Austria. We worked with a company by the name of Braucon. And the cool thing with Braucon is that they're an engineering firm, not a manufacturing firm.
Okay.
And so they engineer and design the system and the automation, and then they have partner firms that fabricate the equipment for them.
Okay.
So we started construction on the new brew house building. We had to have about 60% complete when the tanks came in because the tanks were 2 stories tall. And the lauder tun, was 17 feet in diameter. So pretty large tanks, 120 barrel brew house, 5 vessel brew house. And so we had to set the tanks through the roof. So we had to complete the building without the roof on it, set the tanks in, and then put the roof on top of it. So we got that project done. I think we brewed our first batch of beer in November of 2017 on the new brew house. And we continue to brew on that today. I mean, it's an amazing system. It's 5 vessels, which allows us to stair step the brews.
Yeah.
We can start a new brew about every 2 hours and 15 minutes. So at full capacity, that brew house can produce 120 barrel batches per day.
No kidding.
Capacity on that brew end is around 250,000 barrels.
That's so much beer.
It is a lot of beer. A lot more beer than
See, I vaguely remember. So the last time we recorded here, 2015. Back one of the many times Eric was here and then not here. And one of my favorite things on your website is like the story of Eric was
coming
here,
and going.
and then Eric was gone. But Eric Odershock, wonderful interview. But this was like July, I think, of 2015. And I know the campus was here, and he gave us the whole tour. I'd have to go back and look at that footage. Was construction going on by that point?
No,
okay.
we were designed.
Okay,
so
I don't remember.
3 years. We probably started building in 16.
Okay.
Late 16.
We were just too soon.
Yeah.
But no, even then the campus was I say overwhelming. For a home brewer, anything over 15 gallons, I'm like, whoa, take it easy, pal. What are we doing here? But a 5 vessel system, that's so incredible.
Yeah, so it has the 5th vessel is a wort receiver, which is kind of interesting, and it kind of sits in between the lauder tun and the kettle because the timing just doesn't work out well between the lauder tun and the kettle because laudering can take up to 2 hours.
Sure.
Boil could be as long as 75 to 90 minutes. And usually those things don't time out in a way that you can move from one tank to the next. And so what a wort receiver allows us to do is if the kettle is occupied with the previous batch and we're ready to start running off from the lauder tun, we actually will run to the pre-run tank.
Okay.
And then when the kettle finishes up and transfers to whirlpool, we will transfer all the wort from the wort receiver into the kettle and then finish running off from the lauder tun directly into the kettle. And it essentially saves us about 40 minutes per brew, which doesn't seem like a lot, but if you're going to brew 10 brews in a day, that's 400 minutes.
Yeah.
So, time
is money.
And it is, for us, a big part of the goal really was, to allow us to normalize the shifts for our team.
Absolutely.
We were grinding pretty hard there at the end on the harpoon system, as we were getting ready, working overnights and weekends. And it's just really very tough on the company. It's tough on the team.
Yeah.
And we really wanted to be able to get to a fairly normalized schedule so that we could, brew Monday through Friday and get all the brewing and cellaring in so we could actually have weekends to go hang out and spend time with our families and other things. So
when again, starting as a home brewer, I know obviously there's a punch in the face when you first went to St. Arnold's looking at commercial brewing, but what was the transition like? Is the learning curve easy enough? Because homebrewers know, or you probably know, a lot of homebrewers get bit by the bug and they brew their first batch that they're really proud of. And they're like, honey, we're buying a brewer, or we're starting a brewery. We're going to do this. And they don't realize it's a whole different beast. Commercial brewing, even if you have at home a 3 vessel Herms and you think that you understand it, It's still a whole different beast, right?
It is a completely different beast, and margins are pretty thin, and pricing's fairly inelastic, and you gotta make great beer every day. I talk to a lot of craft brewers that start out, and they're like, "Oh, I want you to try my pale ale. This is a really good batch." And I've been trying to convince people is like every batch has to be a good batch. Like you're only as good as your last batch of beer.
Yeah.
So we focus very highly on quality and consistency, and I think that is what has really allowed us to make it through the last 3 decades. And we definitely, when we started out, were a glorified home brewer, and a lot of the stuff that we were doing, we just didn't know any better. I didn't go to Siebel.
Right.
I wasn't professionally trained. Now, I will say the guy I started homebrewing with was pre-med, so he was really into the chemistry and microbiology behind it. He got me on a good start. I ended up going to ACC and taking some chemistry classes, when I bought the brewery,
Yeah.
so I could be more informed. But it was a lot of trial and error. And it was, one of the cool things about the brewing industry is that there is still a ton of collaboration between brewers and a lot of information sharing that happens. And, I would say like in the early days, Brian Peters and Chip McElroy over at Live Oak, were
Yeah.
extremely helpful. Tim Schwartz, who's our director of brewing operations, but was brewing over at the bitter end, it always hook us up with yeast. And Eric Ogashaka, you mentioned, was brewing over at Copper Tank.
Yeah.
And, so we were all kind of learning and all kind of sharing ideas. And when we all had challenges, and no matter what, other people say, we've always had an incredible relationship with Shiner as well. And from the brewing side, they've always been super helpful.
Yeah.
When Peter Takas was out there helping us out, running GCs for our beers because we can't afford a gas chromatograph, or if we were running into a problem, they'd go and kind of help us look into where that problem was. So there was a ton of collaboration. I mean, I think it was kind of that David and Goliath thing. I felt like we were all kind of working against the man
Behind each other. Yeah.
and helping each other out. So yeah, I mean, when I first took over the brewery, we didn't have a thermometer on the backside of the heat exchanger to cool down the wort. Philip felt like he could grab hold of it and
no.
just based on the touch, what temperature it was. So
How old was he, dude? That's old school.
that was super old school. Yeah.
And his hands were calloused, I bet.
He was an interesting individual. I mean, they did a great job with it. He was ex police officer.
Okay.
He was a motorcycle cop in Austin. He claims he was one of the guys that took the guy out of the tower in the 60s. So, I think
And you have to believe him. We
still
weren't
debate there.
Yeah.
Yeah. He had some crazy jobs, I think, with the CIA. So, he had a
I love it.
mixed sort of opportunities. But yeah, I mean, there was some stuff going on that we just didn't know any better.
Yeah.
And back in the 90s, there was nowhere to go to.
Yeah.
I mean, if we went anywhere, you go to Charlie Papazian's, book, and you'd kind of look through it and see if Charlie had any words of wisdom for you.
What would Charlie do?
That's right.
I want to say real quick to interrupt, to people who don't know, I mean, I'm 40, so it's not like I knew Austin that much in the 90s. The guy you described, the former owner, Philip, average Austinite in the 90s. That was like when Austin was weird, any random dude would be like, yeah, I was involved with the taking out of the guy. And I was like, it was the best time ever in Austin. They were all that way of keep Austin weird. I think of that crowd of that way, like just the stories that I would hear.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I had some CIA operations. Like, yeah, whatever, man. I'm just at Barton Springs. I'm trying
That's
to
right.
swim. I'm just trying.
Let's go see some music.
Yeah.
Good
Gosh.
thread gills.
Yeah, I'm turning into my pop, a boomer, like, oh, back when Austin was good.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but I do. So I know when you took it over, I think y'all had three staples at the time. It was like the Rio Blanco,
Pale ale,
the Pale Ale, and then the Full Moon Rye,
Yep.
and then the Brew House Brown.
That's right. American Brown.
That's my
Texas
favorite
Brown.
of the original. Oh, it's so good.
We
It's
still
so
make
good.
it.
That's what I mean. It is so good. obviously I already said the Hans Pils is my all-time favorite of y'all's, but talk about when Fireman's, and I know colloquially it's Fireman's 4. It's not really, it's Fireman's Blonde, right? But like people call it Fireman's 4 just because that's what they see it on the tap
Well,
handle.
it is Fireman's 4, so it was our 4th beer. That's where the 4 comes from.
Yeah.
And we did it in partnership with a buddy of mine in Austin that had a bicycle manufacturing company called Fireman's Texas Cruisers.
Yeah.
So we took the Fireman's from his name and it being the 4th beer, and we put the two together and called it Fireman's 4. I have a funny story. So, every time you put out a new beer, you have to get it licensed by the federal government and then licensed by the state government. And back in those days, we worked with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, the BATF. It's been shuttered for many years. Now it's the Tax and Trade Bureau, the TTB.
Okay.
But back then it was the ATF, and we had submitted our application for Fireman's number 4. And I got a rejection letter, and it said you have to contact ATF, for future for further information. So I ended up calling this agent up and talking through the issue on the label, and the issue on the label that they had is the lady asked me, she's like, "What does number 4 mean?" And in case you haven't picked up on it, I'm kind of a smartass, and I tend to probably say the wrong things at the wrong times. And I said, it's the number between 3 and 5.
No,
And it was like dead silence on the phone. It was probably just 40 seconds, but it seemed like hours. Yeah. And the lady on the phone said, "Okay, sounds good to me," and then hung up. And 2 weeks later, we got our label approved.
Stop.
So, I think, at the time they were concerned about names that exhibited strength, and they just wanted to make sure that we weren't trying to say it's like it's real strong.
Yeah, okay.
Number 4.
We're the 4th best.
But it was our 4th beer. We made that tap handle over at Greg's shop. He had a bike shop over in West Campus, and we were drinking beers and hanging out. And I had an old school red pub handle in the back of my car. It was probably an old Budweiser tap handle. Probably shouldn't say that.
Again, statute of limitations.
Statute of limitations
Yeah.
probably over by now.
Yeah.
And then we went over to Breed & Company, the little local hardware store, and we got like a brass number 4, like to put on the outside of your house. And then on his workbench, he had an old chain ring, and we just took the old chain ring and the number 4 and some drywall screws, and we screwed it into that pub tap handle. And man, I mean, the rest is history. I mean, that brand is still our number 1 selling beer that we make.
What was the thought behind, is this your recipe? Was this your creation, or who came up with this? Like, hey, you know what we really need to round out like our current offerings? We need a smooth drinker, or we
wanted something that people who rode bikes all day would find refreshing and easy to drink. And so, we wanted Greg's consumers, the people buying his bikes, to go and promote our beer, and we wanted people drinking our beers to go and promote Greg's bikes.
Yeah.
And we just thought, it was a cool partnership. Traditionally, partnerships in the alcohol business are fairly difficult, especially if we're all in the alcohol industry. But when someone's not in the alcohol industry, there's very little regulations that keep us from working together. And so we just thought it was a cool way to support 2 small Austin companies, family-owned businesses, and to come up with something that was unique. And what we found was, those tap handles were so iconic.
Yeah.
And in a crowded, loud bar, when the bartender is asking you what you want and someone just put 4 fingers up, that it was an easy bar call. And it was something that I think resonated with people, and it really stuck. We didn't put Fireman's in a package until 2008. So we launched Fireman's in 2002, I guess. And 2002.
Draft only.
And draft only. And it was draft only for 6.5 years before we put a package out. And originally, we put it out in bottles until 2012. We didn't get into the can market until 2012.
I like I had said, I think I was of legal drinking age. Let me do the math so I don't indict myself. I think it was '06. Yeah.
Statute of limitations.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. My pop was an alcohol. No, I in '06 when I could legally drink. I remember being at like a Pluckers, maybe. I don't know if Pluckers was
Yep,
actually.
Pluckers supported it for a long time.
And like I said, all these macros, Shiner, and then the iconic, just the four on the tap handle.
Yep.
And just being, what is that? Oh, it's a blonde ale. We'll describe it. Oh, it's easy drinking. I like easy drinking.
Yeah.
I think. And yeah, it was just like, oh my gosh.
I gave an opportunity for the consumer and the retailer to engage in some conversation because it didn't have any branding on it. It didn't say real ale.
Yeah.
Didn't say Fireman's 4. It was just really the bike sprocket and the house number, with the drywall screw.
And how slow I am, I confess, if you haven't caught on to that about me. I didn't realize it was a bike thing, and for many years after, until I'm well into my adulthood, like, okay, I think it might have been the interview with Eric, honestly, where I was like, oh yeah, I knew that was a bicycle thing. Of course I did.
Well, I mean, it just goes to prove that nobody reads the bottom of a 6-pack carrier or the bottom of a 12-pack carrier, because that whole story is on the back. Yeah. We printed millions of those, and nobody has read them.
And I think literally after we watched the episode, we didn't do video back then. It was just audio. I really do think Eric was like, dude, it's printed everywhere. Yeah. How did you not know? I was like, God, okay. Listen, I read the side of the cereal box because it's there, right there, but I'm not picking up but what do you think it was though? How quick, actually, let me rewind. How quick after making it did y'all realize y'all had something special by its commercial success? Like when was that light bulb of like, oh my God, this is the flagship now?
Man, it was probably a couple years in, 3 or 4 years in. I mean, it started off like any of our brands, but with it being draft only, and the craft beer scene really starting to get engaged in 2005, 2006. I really feel like there was a big renaissance in about 2010. It allowed us to kind of get the beer into a lot of accounts over that time period and really build up some momentum behind the brand. So, it was probably 2007, 2008 where we're like, this is not just, a one-off, and that the cool thing is that Fireman's essentially allowed us to do all the other cool stuff that we were doing, like the Mysterium Verum program, our soured and barreled aged series beers, and some of the wacky beers we were doing. Fireman's kept the lights on and allowed us to do all that other stuff.
Yeah, and we're in your tap room and you're showing me some of the limited runs and stuff you have. So y'all are always experimenting still.
Yeah, so we have a pilot system with the new brew house, a 10 hectoliter system. And the cool thing about that system is it has the same technology as the main brew house has. So it's a well overblown 10 hectoliter system, 7-barrel system. But the awesome part about it is because we're using the same technology in our pilot system as we use in our main brew house, if we hit a home run on the pilot system, scaling it up to the main brew house is a pretty straightforward equation. We're not doing a lot of guessing.
Right.
A lot of people have different technology in their pilot system than they have in their main system. And though that's a very reasonable way to approach it, we just really felt like spending the extra money and having Braucon design the pilot system just gave us a little bit more comfort knowing that if we really had something that worked well on the pilot, getting it up to scale would be more of a straightforward equation for us.
Making things easy is only good for your bottom line long term. If it's easier to translate.
Well, and the pilot system allows us to be more playful and draw outside the box and to make the beers that we wouldn't necessarily make on a commercial system, maybe because they're too expensive or we didn't think they'd be popular. But it's given us opportunity to work with retailers and do some cool projects. We just did this Been There with a nonprofit in Austin, and that's focused around trying to solve homelessness in Austin, and raised a bunch of money with them. So the pilot system does offer us the opportunity to do some more creative stuff and And even if it sucks, we can just pour it down the drain and move on. So, but
When's the last time you dumped a batch? Come on.
it's not very often, but
Yeah.
we have very high standards.
Oh.
So, if it isn't up to our standards, there's no way it's going to go out the market. We've learned our lesson through the years. Kind of like I was telling you about, like every batch has to be a good batch.
Yeah.
Every batch of beer is hanging on the next batch of beer success. So, I really don't think you can keep your eye off the ball on quality.
But hear me out. If I give you my info and you give me a heads up, I could bring some corny tags the next time you want to dump a batch. We'll leave it at that. You wink, nod, nod.
We used to, so we've been making Sisyphus, our barley wine, for 25 years. And some of the first years, we did work with homebrewers because, when we're done running off a barley wine, there's still plenty of sugar in that lauter tun. And so we had homebrewers come and take the tailings of Sisyphus and make small beers with them.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Party Guile Brewing. Yeah.
So, but yeah, we haven't done that in a while. But yeah, I wouldn't want a home brewer even to get something that wasn't right.
And
So, like we don't really even keep low fills at the facility just because we don't want them to get out to the public.
Yeah.
If something isn't right, we really want to make sure that anything that has our name on it, meets our standard, no matter what it is that we're doing.
Yeah.
So,
and I was going to segue to the distillery. Before we do that, that comment just made me think, what is like y'all's relationship? I mean, I know in Texas and you don't distribute outside the state. I know how it works with distributors and all that. Do you find it easy to ensure the end user is experiencing, like specifically for draft, because you control your bottling and canning, right? But on the draft side, is it difficult to maintain consistency, whether it's at a bar in Austin or it's at a bar in Plano or whatever? Like, do y'all have standards for draft quality?
We do.
You find that issue?
Yeah, with our distributor, like they're required to clean lines on a
You know what I mean?
frequency and all that. And then I feel like draft is almost easier to manage because most reasonable people keep draft beer cold the whole time.
Yeah.
Which is not necessarily the case with packaged beer,
Right. All right.
So, and I think, light and heat are the two kind of biggest enemies of beer. So we usually find packaged beer to be more challenging to manage than draft beer. But we have a pretty robust quality program. We have two different programs that operate at the brewery. We have one program we refer to as quality control. And think about quality control as more of the objective measurements that we can do in a lab and get a numerical value. We can make sure it's within our standard deviation. It meets our standard operating procedures, all that good stuff. Imagine someone in a lab coat. And we do have a chemist and a microbiologist on staff. So, we are looking at all that stuff and pretty good detail. We also have another program called quality assurance. And quality assurance is after the beer's been made, does it meet our expectation all the way up to the expiration date on the beer? And we do that with a sensory panel. So we have an entire building dedicated to sensory evaluation. We have trained sensory panelists, and we will sample beer in the fermenter before it goes into a bright tank. When it goes into a bright tank, as soon as it comes into the packaging, whether it's going to be in a bottle or glass, bottle of glass or a bottle of can. And then we will also sample it with that trained panelist team once every month that it's in date up to the expiration date on the beer. So when we are setting expiration dates on beers, we're not throwing a dartboard and hoping. We're using sensory data in order to determine that. And then if we have a customer complaint, we have a library of everything we've produced, and we can pull out of that library and run it through the trained panelist team. and determine whether it is a systemic issue with the entire batch, or if it was an environmental issue that really impacted that one 6-pack or case or 12-pack or whatever.
Or it could be user error too. I mean, I say user error. They could just be wrong.
They could be, I mean, there's a lot of things, what I usually tell people and other younger craft brewers is like a lot of people sample their beer right off their bottle line or keg line or can line, and they say it tastes great, and that's the last time they think about it. But the reality of it is that's really just the first step in the life of that beer. It's got to go from there to a distributor's warehouse. Hopefully they're going to keep it cold. It's got to go from there to a truck. It's got to sit on a truck all day. If it's delivering in the summertime, who knows how hot it is in that truck. Goes to a retailer. You never know if a retailer's keeping it cold, or maybe they're stacking it up and it's warm, or maybe a compressor's blowing hot air on it all day. Then the consumer buys the 6-pack, and do they leave it in their trunk for a week in the middle of the summer in Texas, or put it in the garage and thinks it's okay to leave it in the garage for 2 months before they throw it in the fridge. So, there's a lot of things that can happen in that beer. And what we want to do is we want to design our beers to be able to withstand most of that stuff. And so we're able to do that through that sensory program. We also do a program called True to Brand, where we do sensory evaluation of packaged beer and ensure that even though we have an automated brew house, even though we have a consistent supply stream, even though we have consistent water, did we make the beer we intended to make? Like, is Brewhouse Brown tasting like Brewhouse Brown? Because we've gone and identified all of the characteristics that we're looking for in Brewhouse Brown, but we want to go and taste and make sure that what we're doing is what we think we're doing, and that ultimately the product that we're getting out to consumers is the product we intended to do. Sometimes you can get kind of caught up in the process and not realize that there's something going on. So we have a full 360 program where we're constantly looking at beers, reevaluating them. If we're making changes to beers in the standard operating procedures in the brewery, we'll see them come back through the sensory lab and evaluate those changes and identify whether we feel like we impacted the beer in the right direction or not. That's how we eventually evolve into the recipes that we have today.
A lot of people listening that are like, I got bit by the bug, I want to start a brewery, are now like, never mind. Oh my God, there's so much to be a successful brewery. Never mind. I'm just
my first question usually is, are you effing crazy?
Yeah.
And if you're not, then don't even get involved.
I think so. Greg Hebner, the brewmaster over at Shiner, we weren't recording at the time, but I think his words were like, what, do they want to start a newspaper too or something like that? He said something to that extent. I'm like, yeah, why not? Here's another great idea for you in 2026.
Well, and especially in this market right now. I mean, it is super rough out there.
Brutal, man. It's brutal.
It is tough, and I don't think we're at the end. I think it's going to get rougher. So, I mean, if it's a passion, I think my dad's advice is the advice that most people should get is like, go work for one and learn on someone else's dime and see if you're up for it. Because everybody just sees you sitting at the bar drinking a beer thinking that's all you do all day. But that's after you worked a 14-hour shift with boots on. Your feet are hurting,
Your hands are burned.
Your hands are burned. And, you're just trying to drink a beer and get out of there. There's a lot to it. And honestly, I mean, it's a lot of glorified cleaning is
a lot of janitorial. A lot of janitorial. I do, before I get my recipe in front of you, because I do want to respect your time. I've been keeping it, especially because I did edit it probably. My gear failed. And so I think we were like 25 before that. We're pushing over an hour. So I want to respect your time. But I do want to talk about the distillery. I didn't realize it's been since 2013, you were saying, that it's been a thing. I had no idea it's been that long. What was the thought behind, as a home brewer, wink, wink, we can't distill in this country, specifically in this state. No, it's federal. It's federally banned.
Yep.
It's a federal ban. Jimmy Carter, you didn't get that done. But what got y'all? Was it just because, hey, similar ingredients and we got the beer? And
it was the same thing, like, the passion and desire, and maybe I was doing some distilling without a license, and maybe I
hypothetically
it was probably a bad idea to do that without a license, and like getting the license was pretty straightforward and pretty easy to do. And so, we, with our program, what we're really trying to do is we're trying to, capture the ester profiles in our beer,
Okay.
and then carrying those ester profiles into our spirit. So all of our spirits are made from our beers. All the washes for the distillery are beer washes, sans hops. There's no
Yeah.
hops in the recipes for the distillery. But we'll use the same yeast that we use for production of those beers. So like our whiskey is primarily made from our Devil's Backbone, our Belgian triple,
Yeah.
and our Scotch ale real heavy. And so, with Belgian triples, typically they produce an ester profile that has a lot of banana and clove, right?
Yes.
And that chemical compound is called isoamyl acetate. And we're very focused on carrying that isoamyl acetate from our beer into our whiskey. So you get like a creme brulee kind of bananas foster aroma to our whiskey. So we, in 2013, commissioned a manufacturer in Portugal to make a alembic pot still for us. Now, this is a hand-hammered alembic pot still. Alembic pot stills, in particular, are designed to distill wine and create the fortifying spirits for port wines and brandies. And alembic pot stills, in particular, are designed to capture flavor, where most stills are designed to strip flavor out. And we felt like an alembic pot still would be perfect for us to be able to carry those ester profiles from the beers into the spirits. And so we do a grain to glass gin from a Belgian wheat beer, and we do a really interesting spirit called Totem that's made from a part brandy, part whiskey, so a passion fruit wheat beer as the base.
That's incredible. I'm gonna have to try the gin at some point. That's my father says that's the alcoholics drink, but I generally like gin and soda.
Yep.
That's my summertime
Well, our
drink.
gin is very, very unique. Think about our gin more as a white whiskey with botanicals, so it's going to have more mouthfeel and body. And our gin is a grain to glass gin, which only 2% of distillers in the world make a grain to glass gin. So 98% of all gin is made from somebody else's vodka.
Yeah.
Usually people buy a tanker truck of somebody else's vodka. They'll redistill it with their botanicals and they call it gin.
Yeah.
We actually start with the Belgian wheat beer. We'll distill it twice to get back to a neutral grain spirit. And then we'll come back and add our botanicals in. So our gin is not a London dry style of gin. So our gin is a New American style of gin. So very fruit forward. So we're really focusing on like grapefruit peels from the Rio Grande Valley, orange peel, lemon peel. Blanco is the lavender capital of Texas. So we have some lavender in there. Angelica root, orris root, grains of paradise.
Yeah.
And then we use a really unique botanical, which is the leaves of the bottlebrush tree. And the leaves of the bottlebrush tree have a unique kind of menthol or eucalyptus character to them.
Now that's again for a sipper with like I'll do tonic, but with just soda water, that's perfect.
Yeah, ours is great. Like little Topo Chica and a lemon wheel, and you're off to the races. We actually just released an Old Tom gin, if you're familiar with that style. So Old Tom gins are a back sweetened gin, and they were traditionally served before the hours the pubs would open in England to some questionable clientele, and they would back sweeten it because people were drinking it at 6 a.m. in the morning and they needed something a little easier on the palate.
Yeah.
So we chose not to back sweeten ours, but to partner with Grape Creek Vineyards out of Fredericksburg.
Okay.
And we took a port wine barrel that they had just dumped and we barrel aged our gin in their port wine barrel. So we picked up a little bit of color and all the sweetness from the port wine.
I was about to ask if that color came through.
Oh, it's a beautiful color. I'll show it to you when we get up.
Absolutely. That insert footage here.
Insert footage, yeah.
Now, again, before I let you go, and I sincerely appreciate your time, man. This has been so much fun chatting with you. I want to get your opinion on the kit as it is now that I'm going to be sending out to members of our Patreon.
Let's do it.
First and foremost, am I right in thinking and keeping it a smash, like as in single malt and single
It is
hop?
the original smash. Before smash was a word, right?
Right, yeah.
Yes, single malt, single hop.
I was trying to keep it simple. So for a 5-gallon batch.
Yep.
10 pounds of 2-row.
Okay. You want like 1050.
Okay.
You get an OG at 1050.
Yeah. So
right in the
that's why I have it 1050 to 1052 is where
1050, 1052, whatever the efficiency of your system is.
I'm gonna mash
10,
for an
12
hour
pounds.
at a 149.
Yeah, a single infusion mash. I'd maybe go a tad bit warmer, maybe
Okay.
150, 151. But yeah,
Okay.
anything in that range, I think, you're gonna get, the basic, maltose sucrose that you're looking for. Like
Right.
we're not looking for dextrins, we're not looking for residuals. We
Right.
really just want fermentable sugars that
Yeah.
the yeast can go to town with.
I'm using crystal hops.
Absolutely, nothing but.
And I here's where I think I might be off. I think I need to kick it up a little. I only have 1 ounce for the full 60. Should I go
Ounce and a half.
ounce and a half?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I had a half ounce at 15 and then a half ounce at 5. Should I bump those?
I would do a ounce and a half at 60, an ounce at 15, and a half ounce at 5.
Okay, so I'm going to add a half to the top, and then I'm going to add a half to the middle, and then leave the bottom half.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So 1.5
That's
60.
3 ounces total.
Yeah.
Yeah. And half of it right up front and let it provide the bitterness. Now, we have changed that recipe, from a production standpoint. Doing a smash on our scale is a little crazy, especially with crystal, alpha acids on crystal, traditionally 4.5, 4.3, 4.8.
Right?
Yeah. And trying to use it to bitter on a commercial scale is probably not the smartest of things. So, we are using, a much higher alpha for bittering, for the production, but all the original batches, probably up until like 2008, were all 100% crystal.
Okay, cool. Right
yeah.
on.
Yeah, you're right in the wheelhouse.
And for the yeast, here's where I'm torn, because I don't know if I should go with an English strain or like just a good old classic Chico strain for the yeast.
Chico's going to make it a little drier.
I'd say dry it out.
I think an English strain is probably right on target.
Okay.
I mean, anything you have laying around, I think. I don't know if YU still does like the 1056. I think that was one of the ones I originally worked with. But London Dry, something,
Nottingham or something.
Anything like that. And try to keep your ferment temperature in line. We have extremely tight tolerances at the brewery. We're 0.2 of a degree Fahrenheit for tolerance.
Whoa.
So, we like to see things ferment at 68.3 degrees Fahrenheit. So I realize as a home brewer, you're probably not going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But, understand that yeast produces different ester profiles at different temperatures.
Okay.
And so if you want to try to mimic what we're doing, like trying to get under 70 degrees and above 65 degrees is really important if you want those apricot ester profiles that are so typical in Fireman.
One of the reasons I'm glad we're doing it this month is I think a lot of people across the country, specifically Texans who are in our club, will be able to hit those temps.
Yeah.
Like even, you know what I mean? Even in a closet or in the office or whatever.
Yeah.
My office, I built into my garage. I have way overkill mini split in there, so I can keep that temp. And sometimes I'll pressure ferment. This is a batch. I'll probably just not. I'll do it at the temperature it needs to be at, as opposed to trying to compensate through pressure and whatnot.
Yeah, I would say too, like we are ramping up for the 30th anniversary. That event will be out here on Saturday, April 18th. So we hope we get a bunch of people come out and help us celebrate. Leading up to it, we are going to be doing a Fireman's 4 sweepstakes program throughout the state of Texas. So you should see the displays up. You can go to our website. Your listeners can scan a QR code and enter to win, but we're going to give away one of Greg's bikes.
No way.
So it's a $3,000 bike. It's super badass. And
we're Texans only. You heard him.
Texans only. We're going to give it away the evening of the anniversary party. So you have to come out to the anniversary party or anything like that. If you do want to come out, Greg's going to be out here with his bikes. We'll be registering people all the way up until till midnight. So if anybody's interested in coming out and supporting it, you can scan it from your home office, or if you're in the retail world, we'll have displays that are up supporting Fireman's 4. We're also celebrating that Fireman's won a gold medal at the World Beer Cup. So Fireman's 4 is the #1 blonde ale in the world.
That's right. That's another reason you want to join at patreon.com/Homebrew Happy Hour, recipe receiving tier. Get this shipped out to you at the end of the month. I had to do my plug there.
Yeah, get it in there.
Everything's about send us money, y'all.
Please.
Brad, my friend, dude, I sincerely appreciate your time, dude.
Absolutely. It was so much fun. Yeah.
And April 18th, you said?
Saturday, April 18th, 30th anniversary, 4 bands. And we're gonna release tickets probably when this starts to air. And if people are interested, we are gonna have heavily discounted tickets as a way to give back to the community for the first 30 days. So I've heard tickets maybe as cheap as $10, including a Hans Pils 19.2 and a koozie.
I'm gonna buy tickets.
You're gonna buy tickets.
I'm gonna buy tickets, man. So, appreciate your time, my friend. All the details will be in the show notes below, and look out for on the website and all that for more details. So thank you guys for joining us.